Ugh, look at those angry vegans yelling at people. She's just a social media activist. One movie can't change the world. The fresh cut, still looking good. Effective activism is the topic we have today. It's something I've been thinking about for a while as I've been transitioning and trying out different forms of activism, which you guys know. I mainly just made YouTube videos for a while and podcasts, and now that I'm in Berkeley, I've been doing protests. I've been filming direct actions. I've been more of a direct action activist rather than just being on social media. And with that new change, I've gotten a lot of positive feedback in the comments of mainly vegans saying, oh, that's really cool that you're doing that, but at the same time, I've gotten a lot of criticism saying this form of activism just doesn't work. It's just vegans yelling at people in the public. Why are you doing this? So I thought I'd make a video breaking down really the three most typical forms of making social change and activism in our world today, and how I value each one of them in terms of their effectiveness. So it shouldn't matter as much if you just like being a podcaster or like being a YouTuber or like to protest. You should be doing what the data, the history, the science, you could say, is the most effective ways to make social change possible. So I have organized three main categories that I think are the routes that you can go. Number one, and the most historically successful, ancient, whatever you can say, it's hard to argue with, is direct action protesting. And the reason for that is it's the most primitive, simple way to do it. During the civil rights movement, they didn't have the internet to make podcasts and YouTube videos, but they got in the streets and they protested and they won eventually. Examples of groups that use protesting is Direct Action Everywhere, the one I'm involved with, but also PETA. They obviously used it a lot in the civil rights movement. You've seen images of this and videos, and Black Lives Matter uses it when they shut down the freeways and disrupt civil disobedience, nonviolent civil disobedience. Honestly, making people annoyed. Do you think these people who were stopped in traffic were happy that their night was maybe ruined? No, but this is a form of, to enact social change, to say, look, I'm angry about what's going on here, and I'm willing to, have this public civil disobedience in order to just shout from the mountaintops, you need to listen to us, Black Lives Matter. But in this category, you also have to consider the people who go to the extreme of protesting. Here's a video of a group of people that are pretty infamous on Facebook in the vegan and animal rights world for approaching people wearing fur in New York City.
What's the matter with you? You should be ashamed of yourself. Fur is horrible and you look disgusting. Innocent animals are tortured and murdered for that? Look disgusting.
Am I completely on board with this type of activism? For me, I don't think I can do it. It's way too confronting, it's way too aggressive and negative and shaming, but people are doing it, and right now I'm just laying out all the forms of activism. Okay, now the second tier and category, I'm just gonna call it living by example. So you see this a lot in the fitness community, people who post on social media just, look, I'm really fit, or I'm an amazing athlete. Models as well, doing it on behalf of their vegan diet and lifestyle and promoting veganism throughout the process. They're not as much getting in the streets, organizing protests, but they're maybe writing books, maybe opening restaurants. Crossroads Kitchen is a great example. I think in 2014-15, it was one of the top rated restaurants in Los Angeles. Not best vegan restaurants, just best restaurants in general. And when you go to their restaurant, it's a very fine dining place, and it doesn't say vegan or even plant-based on the menu. It's simply a restaurant living by example to having extremely high quality food that happens to be vegan. Cookbooks are another example of this. Posting beautiful pictures of food on Instagram, I would say, is a live by example type of form of activism where you're not confronting anyone, you're not showing the dark side of what happens within the industry that you're trying to fight. Maybe you're not posting animal cruelty videos, but you're just showing, look at how awesome our lifestyle can be, and hope that people come in. The last tier and category I'm going to call educational and science-based, more approaching the facts that we know about veganism. This is the health side, plant-based nutrition, in order to reel people in. Examples of this, nutritionfacts.org, the widely popular website and YouTube channel that just provides really simple snippets of science-based facts and data promoting a plant-based diet. Okay, so those are the three categories that I'm going to be talking talking about today, and now let's just see what works. Let's look into the history of people doing each one of these categories and see the kind of successes or failures that we've had. Also the magnitude of success. Okay, when I was speaking at CowCon a few weeks ago, great event, thanks guys, Kip and Keegan for inviting me, I saw a speech by a guy named Pat Cuviello. He's been in the animal rights world since like the 80s or something like that. He co-founded a nonprofit, like a grassroots organization called Humanity Through Education, which fights to promote compassion and veganism from, a grassroots people being out in the streets. So what Pat talked about in his lecture that I watched is that starting in, I think it was the 80s or 90s, they went to every single like Ringling Brothers and just circus in general that had animals being exploited within the show, and they went out as the crowd was walking in with their tickets and handed out pamphlets of like, look, here's what these animals have to go through. Here's how they are being starved of food and water while they're being transported by rail from city to city. And so this is like a form of protest. This is direct action. This is going out into your community, showing the horror and dark side of what these public people are promoting, purchasing a ticket, and trying to talk to people and enact change. This usually does not result in too quick of a form of activism, but it is so many times we can see throughout history it works with persistent effort. So, Pat was doing this, I see on his website, for the past 28 years, and it was only this past year that Ringling Brothers announced that they are no longer going to be using elephants in their circus. And also, here's an example of Circus Vargas going completely animal-free, and Pat's group was the main organization that was consistently handing out pamphlets, doing direct action, and it took 28 years, but it worked. Another example, while this isn't direct action because it was more of a film, it was a movie, but showing animal cruelty, because a lot of vegan people and plant-based people don't think that showing animal cruelty in videos or in general is really effective. It kind of just shames people and they don't want to see it. Let's talk about the movie Blackfish here. If you don't remember, if you haven't seen Blackfish, it came out maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and it showed what was going on in SeaWorld with the orca breeding program, and all of the cruelty involved with keeping these really intelligent, large animals in completely artificial, small enclosures, demanding them to do tricks and separating their families. Blackfish worked. It's a terrible movie to watch. It's extremely sad, but SeaWorld no longer has an orca breeding program, and that means they're completely phasing out orca whales in their show, in their performances. Let's talk about the cons to direct action, because obviously they're there. Some people, public people, maybe walking on the street, when they see people who are angry, even though we're entitled to be angry because the system is not perfect of animal exploitation that exists in our world, they're maybe a little bit turned off and say, these people are crazy, I don't want to be involved with whatever they're involved in. It's definitely a drawback for some people, no doubt. Now, the live by example route is also very effective, because oftentimes this category of activists or advocates, whatever you want to call them, are kind of the most professional. Let's mention like Rich Roll, who comes out with the most beautiful cookbooks, the most polished podcast, and look, he gets on he's always on the top 10, I think, in health and fitness on iTunes. He gets hundreds of people signing up for his retreats. There's no doubt that because of the inspirational quality and also the professional, the level of professionalness in his content really brings people in to learn about the lifestyle because they aspire to be like him and his family. The downside to the live by example approach is that there's also a ton of other examples. For every Rich Roll who's so inspiring and just performed so well and has inspired me, I could have also stumbled upon some paleo dude, promoting a all meat diet, and I could have gone that route. Because the thing is, there's a lot of people doing inspirational things regardless of the diet that they have, trying a diverse amount of stuff. So with this route, without exposing people to like kind of the shame and guilt side, like here's why you shouldn't do this, it's just trying to say, hey, do this because this vegan thing also works, but it's hard to flip-flop. You can kind of choose either way. The effective part, in my opinion, about direct action is if you're fighting for animal liberation, for instance, no one wants to see animals be killed. So if you show that to people, it's pretty effective that they shouldn't be killing animals. The last category, education. Does it work? Does it not work? Of course it works. The China study was one of the first books that I read that actually got me from vegetarian to going vegan. Thankfully, especially in the plant-based community, we believe that the science is on our side. And again, this is kind of the same as like lifestyle. You can still flip-flop. For every study showing that cholesterol, having high cholesterol is a risk factor for heart disease, which pretty much every nutritionist I know says is accurate, and the data shows that, you can find someone who published a study, who knows who funded it, that shows that dietary cholesterol doesn't affect your actual cholesterol levels, and it's not a risk factor or saturated fat for heart disease. When you get into the minutia of science, with money, it's easy to manipulate a study and prove anything. So even though most of the science is on our side, it's not a perfect panacea of, okay, the data will always show plant-based. And also, a flaw of this approach is that a lot of people don't care about their health, and you can't tell someone to care about their health. That's fine. I know as a college student, I would always try to talk about health with my peers, and they would rather just drink beer and not talk about it. So health isn't all, you know, if you show an animal being abused, that's heart-wrenching to any human being. If you tell someone that they could live a healthier, more active lifestyle eating this way, that might not resonate to a lot of people. So what am I saying here? We know everything works. What you need to do is figure out what resonates with you most, maybe what made you go vegan, because you'll have a emotional connection with that, and choose to do that form of activism. We shouldn't be shaming people who are just making beautiful cookbooks for not being out in the street, because maybe that's not what makes them comfortable, and if they did that, they'd provide less quality products of the things that they do well. At the same time, I have a lot of really good friends who equate direct action with vegans yelling at people in the street or in a grocery store. Look, I've done direct actions in grocery stores, in restaurants. We're not yelling at people. We are chanting, we're maybe singing, and then for every protester out there, we have someone behind the scenes who's actually getting into conversations with public people who are watching, saying, oh, what is this about? And we're very calmly and collectively talking about what we're doing. There's no yelling at people in the street. Wait, there actually is. The fur people, I'll just say it right here, it's not something that I would be involved in, but a lot of the direct actions that I've done that may seem like standing your ground in public, we're not yelling at people. It's all very organized and collected and composed. I believe that real change and animal liberation comes from a change of heart and compassion, because if you only choose to focus on diet, for instance, there's a lot of data showing that eating meat once in a while, just reducing your amount of animal products, can significantly improve your health, being kind of vegan-ish. And if that's what you want for this world, then you can promote that strictly. I am really fighting for animal liberation. Let's have an example. When it comes to slavery and even the civil rights movement, were we trying to abolish slavery, or were we trying to just reduce it? We were trying to abolish it, not we, I wasn't around to do that, but human beings, progressive human beings, were abolishing this cruelty. They were not just reducing it. And does slavery still exist? For the most part, no. Although in our current prison system, there are pretty much forms of slavery, but that's for another video. We essentially abolished slavery. We didn't fight to reduce it. And that's why I think when it comes to the animal liberation movement, really liberating animals from being exploited, without a real change of heart, without exposing people to why they shouldn't be paying for animals to be abused, raped, tortured, and killed, you need some form of direct action, some form of exposing people to the horrors of the animal agriculture industry in order to really make the change that we want. You can do that in a million ways. You can do that on social media, direct action, holding signs and talking to people in the streets. You can do that through education and books like Animal Liberation, a great example of an educational piece of text that talks about the horrors and atrocity and torture within the animal agriculture and also animal testing world. So figure out what resonates with you most and do it. Do it well. Do do it often. For me, it's a little bit of everything. I have a podcast that's conversational, a lot of educational stuff. I have a YouTube channel that is very much live by example, where I show my fitness and the things that I'm proud of in my own life. And then I go out onto the streets and I protest and I expose people and interact with my community directly and tell them why I'm not happy with the choices that they have made to exploit animals. So I do a little bit of everything. You should do whatever resonates with you most. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. Please let me know in the comments, what forms of activism do you do? What do you think is the most effective? And let's have a conversation about where we should be devoting most of our energy towards to really make this animal liberation goal happen. Much love. Dream Extreme. Subscribe. See you later.